We are live, live, live. How are you? I just got back from smoking and I refreshed my coffee. I was going to read 1 Thessalonians 2:8 for you because it's about Paul in Thessalonians, in Thessalonica. Thessalonians 2, 1 Thessalonians 2:8. So, being affectionately desirous of you, we were willing to have imparted unto you not the gospel of God only, but also our own souls, because ye were dear unto us. And that scripture comes from Christ Chapel in Fort Worth. They are doing a sermon on sharing is caring this next week. And, it's pretty interesting because they said that sharing is caring is something we should always be reminded of, even in adulthood. It's easy to do when you're a kid and you're trying to share a toy, but when you're an adult and you're trying to share a car, you might not want to do that, but maybe you should if the need arises. Paul was willing to not only share the gospel, but his own self with the people of Thessalonica. And so you can see that Paul was a very caring person and he cared dearly for the people that he taught, sharing what he had with them and leading them to faith in Jesus, but also caring for their well being and sharing what he had. Uh, let's see. I'm uh talking about. I also wanted to talk about the UFO files a little bit. I watched another YouTuber, and he was talking about how Trump is trying to set this church up for deception. Uh, with the UAPs and UFOs, but I don't think that's the case. I think he's briefing the church so it won't get caught blindsided when with with the release of the UFO files. They'll be able to talk about it with their parishioners and church members and uh, like let people know, hey, uh, there is a deception and there are demons that are portraying themselves as aliens. And so you need to be aware. I I personally believe there is life out there somewhere. I don't know where it's at. I believe God has tasked us to find it, but like we're a long ways from finding it, I think. But they have had communications with other life forms out there through NASA. Yeah. And so I do think there are people out there and they might already have light speed or something like that or warp speed. Anyways, something else I wanted to talk about is well, let me finish with the UFOs first. Is that Trump, President Donald J. Trump, I trust him because the reason that I trust him is that he has no real reason to lie. He's not in with the government. The government is not our friend. Even my grandma, even Grams understood this. She would constantly remind my brother and I that the government is not efficient. It's not there to help you. It's not there for you to depend on. It's there to defend us. That's its primary task. As long as the government does that, it has achieved success, whether you starve or not. It's unfortunate because the government has a lot of money, but the government doesn't really have the ability to distribute that money. We are not a communist nation. And so, like we're waiting for a hookup from Trump on the tariff money. But other than that, you can't really trust the government to care for your daily needs and provide you food and stuff like that. You have to provide for yourself. But there is a caveat. I do think that the United States government, the government of America, could provide a basic universal income for Americans. But before we can implement that, we need to finish deporting all these illegals that have entered the country illegally, because they'll be able to get this universal basic income while they're here. And we don't want that. They're already collecting Social Security. It's astounding and shocking. I have one thing to say about illegal aliens: deport. Yeah, they need to be deported. All of them. They were allowed to enter. They need to be shown the exit. But I think that Trump that there is a solution to the illegal aliens, and I think that they're going to come up with that solution and pin it on Trump. Uh, what is that solution? Well, since before I was born, I've come to the understanding that there's a war on white Christian men. You don't want to be a white Christian male in America once Trump leaves office. Because the thing is that we're going to face a lot of persecution, and it's already happening. In Virginia, the governor issued a law that said that the government has to discriminate against white males. This uh, the evidence that I've seen for this in the government is that, if you're the government, for some reason, has it in their head that they have to discriminate against somebody, but it's you they can no longer discriminate against a black person in the government, because that's a hate crime, you know. So they're going to, since before I was born, I believe there's been a war on the white Christian men, and the there's a pagan element within our government that seeks to undermine the sharing of the gospel, the message of Jesus, and what we just read. Sharing is caring. You can't you can't have sharing is caring without Jesus. See, because he is essential to the doctrine of that teaching, because he shared what he had. When he fed the 5,000, he shared the fish and the loaves with them, you know? And so he showed that he cared. Uh, you know, so anyways, they're going to portray Jesus as black, or they're going to portray uh the Jews as black, or try to make everything. It's the government now. Don't be fooled. It's not BLM is just uh a symptom of a bigger problem, where the government is opposed to the white Christian men. And this is why they've introduced homosexuality and gay marriage, because it's there are people who struggle with this, and in their minds, you know, I think it can happen where a strong bond forms and something, happens, but I don't think that, you know, that in general most men would marry another man, you know. But this issue has been brought up because it's being used to antagonize and target the church in other countries already, like Canada and the UK. You cannot talk about the LGBTQ plus community in churches in Canada or the UK, and Australia probably too, because that's a hate crime. See, but here in America, we still have freedom of speech. See, and so we can address something that is sinful. You know, like I believe we should accept people. Adults can live their lives the way they want to, but we need to be honest and admit that you know adultery and homosexuality and having affairs are not Christian things. And this is a sad it, uh, reality is that there are people that practice these things even in the church, and they're high up in the church offices. You know, like it's going to be that way till Jesus returns, basically, because you know the tares are growing alongside the wheat, and according to Jesus. And so this war on the white Christian men is a part of the of what some have, I think, is what some people have described as a white genocide to control the white population, you know. And they're trying to make it more difficult for a white Christian man to have a family, have a home, have a job, and function in public society, and try to make them a drain. But and they want to pin this on Trump. That's why they want the SAVE Act, so that they can start doing this, proactively persecuting white men, Christian men, for their faith, and that's why I'm opposed to the SAVE Act, because why does an illegal need to be prevented from voting? They're not supposed to be voting. So the SAVE Act is redundant, you see, and they're going to have to come up with some new way to identify us. And we'll have to get that new identification. And watch, we will not be able to get it. I'm warning you. That's why I've been talking about the SAVE Act so much, because I'm trying to communicate something about our government where it's our government. Trump is a good president and he is doing an outstanding job. And I think he's reforming some elements of the government, but since before I was born, the government has hated white people and white men, Christian men in particular. And they don't care if you're not really a professing Christian or not. They just see a white man and they think that's a white Christian man. Let's get him, you know. And it's, you know, they that's that's what they want to do is antagonize and persecute Christians, and their vision is like China, like China constantly persecutes its Christians all the time. They put them in jail for going to church. They beat them for praying. They do all these things, and it's going to come here to America. That's why I've been trying to and wake up the American church and uh, tell them about the persecuted church. Because hey, there's this whole group of people in Muslim countries and in China where they're persecuted for their faith. They can't just open a Bible. If they do, they'll go to jail or get beaten. They might even get killed. It's happened. And there's abandonment, and there's and so by discriminating against the white men, they're trying to make the white man, the white Christian male, a drain on society, so that they can, you know, be forced to be dependent on the government, and not because even right now, a white Christian man can be successful in our society because there are not that many regulations preventing them from operating on their own and making a company or a business or operating independently of the government. But the government is going to implement controls along with curbing our ability to vote. And it's going to happen. You know, I'm not an alarmist. When I was in the Navy, I noticed that everything I filled out had race on it. And why do you think that is? It's so that they can figure out whoever they can discriminate against, they're going to discriminate against somebody. And guess who they can discriminate against? In Virginia, they said they can discriminate against white Christian men. Now, my question is, why is the government discriminating against anybody? You know, like we put them in power to lead our country, and and their concern is Who can we discriminate against? This is yet another reason why we need Trump. This is why we need another term for Trump, because the government hasn't learned its lesson. One more term. That's what I say. Trump 2028. There have been attempts by other states to discriminate against white Christian men. For example, John MacArthur was discriminated against by Gavin Newsom, and he stood up and continued to operate his church during COVID. There were a lot of pastors who didn't do that, and I was so impressed with John MacArthur for doing that. He stood up and took a stand for God, and I applaud him for that. Thank you, John MacArthur, for not allowing the government to silence you and to silence the message of the gospel. Rest in peace, and thank you. Now, there happens to be a time where this happens to be a time where the government is transitioning. Before, they used to discriminate against black people, see? So, for some reason, discriminating against black people for the last 200 years has been their primary objective, but they're switching. They're switching to the white Christian male because they know that the white Christian male is powerful voting bloc. And if they can marginalize it or somehow prevent us from voting, then they win. See? And they'll destroy this country. That's what they envision doing. They don't understand that there are other people, not just white people, who love this country. And I was in the military, and I served with people from all different backgrounds. And they, by and large, loved America and the opportunity that it presented and the freedoms that it offers. They wouldn't have entered the country illegally. They were willing to stake their lives on defending America because they loved it. And they were not white Christian men. So they but they were in the military serving alongside us, you know. And but were they my question is, were they being discriminated against? I've always wondered that because, like I don't feel like I was necessarily discriminated against in the military, but sometimes I wonder because, like I didn't make my rank like I was supposed to, or I didn't get the assignment I wanted, or was it because I was a white person? Is that why they didn't give me the assignment? It makes me wonder because I had to put my race on every piece of paper, so I couldn't lie. I couldn't tell them I was Hispanic. They would know right off. I'm white as a snowflake. And I have no problem with being white because I'm not ashamed of it. And I think that the white people have contributed a lot to society, not just white men, but white women as well. Because, you know, it's science and medicine and agriculture and business and politics and there's been a lot of drains on society as well, though. You have to keep that in mind, is that there were plenty of white people who came along and tried to mess it up before, but God prevailed then, and I believe he will prevail now, and I don't think he will allow them to successfully implement evil. But nevertheless, persecution has happened, and our government is complicit in persecuting the blacks. That's a fact. Jim Crow came from our government, and Jim Crow is going to be reinstated for the white Christian men. See, because in the government, there's this understanding that they have to discriminate against somebody, and so that's what they're going to do. And this became apparent during Obama. Like every piece of legislation discriminated against somebody. Every every directive from the president discriminated against somebody. Every uh, instruction I read in the Navy discriminated against somebody. It was incredible. I mean, and then we got ISIS and the war on police, and you know, so those are a lot of police officers are white Christian men. Uh, Allegedly, COP stands for Christian Armed Patrol. So there you have it. Is that the police is a symbol of the white Christian man, even though I see plenty of police officers that are not white. Like I mean, and they do a good job. They're good officers. I think. I like when I see them, they're doing their job. Seems like to me, you know, like I'm just like anybody else. Like when I get pulled over because I'm speeding, I get frustrated, or because my headlight was out, I got frustrated then too. But I appreciate what the police do by making sure that like maybe he was really just trying to help me understand that my headlight was out. But then why did he give me a ticket? You know, I don't think I deserved a ticket, but he gave me a ticket and I was so frustrated. But nevertheless, he did his job. He did his duty before before the city and before the state of Texas and before the United States of America. You know, like everyone would agree with me that he did his job. Oh, but anyways, this SAVE Act is a part of the war. It's going to be turned into a part of the war on white Christian men in our country. It is not like it's been fomenting since before I was born. The war hasn't started yet because Trump is in office. Like if they discriminated against Trump, they have to, and Trump knew about it, he'd call them out and they'd be humiliated. They're not going to actually do anything to discriminate while Trump is in office because Trump is holding all the cards. Like the people love Trump. I saw a meme the other day that said it shows. I wish I could show it to you, but I can't. It shows an iceberg, and you have the upper part of the iceberg showing, like for the Titanic. When the Titanic hit an iceberg, they could see a little bit of the iceberg. It just shows a little bit what CNN shows, you know, a vocal minority. And then beneath the water, you have this giant iceberg, the rest of the giant iceberg, and you can see that they they are not revealing the whole truth of who all supports Trump. Because I don't think it's just white Christian men. Like I had somebody accuse me of thinking that Trump is the white savior. That's not why I vote. I never really responded to him on that because that's not why I voted for him. I don't see him as the white savior necessarily because I don't think white people need a savior. We have a savior, Jesus, and that savior is for everybody, not just for white people. And I just happened to uh, really like that meme because it was encouraging. Because there are a lot of people who they don't post on Facebook, they don't stream, they don't do any of this stuff online. They just go about their day. But when the time came to vote, they voted for Trump, and it was a lot of them because Trump makes sense. Trump, he doesn't mess around. He doesn't give a word salad and not do what he's just said he's going to do. He's currently fulfilling one of his campaign promises in 2015 by dealing with Iran. So we can see that Trump is going to get to all these campaign promises. And this is the sign of that is that he's going to do it. He's dealing with Iran right now. He'll deal with deportations later. And eventually, Congress will have term limits. It's coming, and they deserve it. And this will help prevent a war on white Christian men because, like their term will be up and they won't have time to implement a war on or discriminate against anybody. They have a job to do that we send them to Washington to do, and that's it. They don't have 40 years in government to discriminate against people and think that's okay. because I don't think discriminating is okay at all. I don't understand why our government has to discriminate. If they have to discriminate, then I think, well, okay, term limits it is then. And I believe term limits is coming. Trump said it, it's going to happen. Just like with Iran. Trump said it, said Iran wouldn't have a nuke, and it looks like Iran is not going to have a nuke. Thank God for that. And they won't have nuclear energy either because they were trying to enrich this uranium and they wouldn't let anybody in to inspect it. And so everybody who knows about this knows that Iran was trying to build a nuclear weapon and they were trying to attack Israel, you know. And so I you know, like but in the meantime, I think it's possible that the KKK will grow and reemerge as an organization because pe people are scared, they don't want to be discriminated against, and they know that it's going to affect them. But this is what Trump is trying to prevent is from some organization like the KKK from growing in popularity because uh, our government can't be trusted. And this is what term limits will help do. Every few years we'll have to refresh our government, but it'll be worth it because we won't have people in there discriminating. They'll be doing their duty. They'll have the honor and privilege of serving in Congress, and then once they're done, they go home. And that's what we need. We Serving in Congress is a privilege, not a right. And some of these politicians have been in there for 40 plus years. They have been in there longer than my sister's been alive. And that's she's been alive for a while. Like, hold on there, Pelosi. Hold on there, Mitch McConnell. What are you guys doing in government so long? Why can't Trump serve a third term if you can serve 40 years in government? You know, that's my opinion. Because we know Pelosi is close to 40 years in the government, and Mitch McConnell is probably not far behind her. Let's look it up. Mitch McConnell is an American politician and attorney serving as the senior United States Senator from Kentucky, a seat he has held since 1985. So Mitch McConnell has been in office longer than Pelosi. He's been in office as long as my brother has been alive. So these people need to go. Because the way I see it, our government is basically, until we get term limits, our government is basically the same bird, just different wings. You have the left wing and the right wing, but it's the same bird. See how I have a right hand and a left hand, but I'm still the same person. Like my left hand and my right hand are going to work together eventually, even if I'm incoherent. My goal will be to use my left and right hand to do something. And eventually, one of the two will work. Just like and that's why I don't plan to vote in the future unless Trump runs again, like in 2028, because I really think he should run again. Like if Pelosi and Mitch McConnell can be in office this long, why can't Trump run again? I don't understand. And that's why I support the term limits, definitely. And I believe Trump will implement them, just like he said he would. He's he's a man of many surprises, and term limits for the days of Pelosi and Mitch McConnell are gone. Basically, they're still in there, but like their method of operation is over thanks to Trump. Uh, and it makes me go back to sharing is caring. Is that we, like the people in the government are selfish. They don't share, they don't care, and they aren't living according to what the Bible says, you know, and that's apparent, you know. They have a slush fund that is for sexual assault cases. Why didn't they have something like that in the United States Navy? Because, you know, I would have just had sex if I had known about something like that, because there were times where I felt like there were girls that wanted to have sex with me, but I didn't want to risk my Navy career just to have 5 minutes of pleasure, you know? And so I find this topic to be important, you know? Uh, like something that, uh, you know, like when I was a kid, I would read a lot of the Bible, and I noticed that Paul, he talks a lot about sexual sin. So I didn't want to partake in sexual sin when I knew it was wrong. But also, I knew that my career would be in danger. So I mean, but yet in Congress, they're able to do this. They're able to have a sexual experience and continue on their day because they have a slush fund that they can turn to if they need to make a payout. All all the members of Congress voted to keep this slush fund going. And so we need to remember that these people are evil and the current batch needs to go. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene did one good thing while she was in office. She got out. Just like uh just like Trey Gordon. He got out too. And it good riddance to him as well. He turned out to be a rhino and anti-Trump, and so he wouldn't have been an asset to Trump. See, why are all these people against Trump in the government? And they're not just Democrats, they're Republicans too. And it's because Trump is holding up this war on the white Christian men. That's why. They want to implement their evil, and that's why the they legalized gay marriage. Like most of the states had banned gay marriage. And then the Supreme Court said, oh no, that's unconstitutional. And that's why another reason why I don't think we should ban Sharia law, because all these states will ban Sharia law, and then the Supreme Court will come along and say, "Oh no, that's unconstitutional." So it'll undermine our Constitution once again. So we need to ban Islam and not Sharia law, because Islam is like Sharia law can mean whatever they want it to mean. There's no 10 commandments of Sharia law. Like we have the 10 commandments. If we make laws all the time based off of the 10 commandments because those are good laws where we can go, murder is a crime, committing adultery is a sin, and we know that so we can turn to the 10 commandments and know exactly what's expected of us. With Sharia law, it's whatever the Sharia court says. You can't have that in America because that would be unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court, we already can tell the Supreme Court is going to side with the Muslims. And I'm just warning you, this is because of Trump. See how what they want to do is finalize this war on the white Christian men and pin it on Trump because we voted for Trump. But they're deceived. See, they think we were the only ones that voted for Trump. The truth is, a lot of people from a lot of different races voted for Trump. They all supported Trump as a conglomerate. And this is why uh, Trump was so successful because he had support among the blacks, among the Hispanics, among the Latinos, among the whites, among everybody who could vote. And so, the issue of race is something that comes up. because like when I filled out job applications, I always had to put my race. See, why is that required? They should take that requirement off the job applications. They should just hire people who are qualified. That's against what Martin Luther King Jr. said. It's judging people based off of their skin color or their race. And we need to judge people off their character and what they can do, you know? Like if someone is qualified to be a doctor, they're qualified to be a doctor. I've never gone into a doctor and said, "Hey, where's the white doctor? Can I see him?" No. If the doctor is black and he's qualified, then I go see him, you know? I'm just using that as an example because there's Dr. Ben Carson. He is really a great doctor and he's done amazing things. And he has never let his race hold him back. You know, he's never blamed anybody else for his problems other than taking responsibility himself. And that's what I think that the vast majority of people do. And that's why it's hard to communicate about this war against the white Christian men because most people blame themselves for their own problems. They take personal responsibility. But there is a minority of people that were taught while they were growing up to blame somebody else, you know. And so those people are living in misery and they think it's someone else's fault. They don't uh they don't under they, so they probably didn't vote for Trump. They probably didn't support don't support the Iran war. They may not even know there's even a war going on because and it's not a race thing. There are people that are white that probably sit around and think it's someone else's fault that they are uh being held back. And I do think there's a truth to it that Congress has implemented laws in the past to discriminate against a certain race. And they're now doing it to discriminate against a different race, the white Christian men. But they can't do it yet because Trump is in office. See, so Trump is buying us time to and he's trying to thwart this from happening by implementing term limits because these people are in government for way too long. Like, in order to come up with a scheme like that, this had been passed down from generation to generation, you know, and they're just beginning to implement it in Virginia, where they can discriminate against white Christian men, you know. And so I just wanted to communicate all this because I think it deals with sharing is caring. See, if more people shared and cared, then there wouldn't be a government that discriminates against people. Pelosi doesn't share and doesn't care. I don't know about Mitch McConnell, but he is standing up against the SAVE Act. That's pretty impressive. So I wish him success. I wish what they would do is have Trump implement his vision for voting because his vision seemed to exclude entirely illegals from voting. This is not going to exclude illegals from voting until they implement a new form of identification that the illegals can't get because illegals have a driver's license. I see them lined up all the time to buy beer at 7-Eleven. Like it's so infuriating because I'm just trying to buy a pack of cigarettes and they're buying beer. Like what the heck? You're an illegal. How are you able to buy beer? You have to show an ID in Texas to buy beer. So they can vote in Texas. Like, don't be fooled. These people are voting, are able to vote, whether you admit it or not. And, you know, in the end, I think that America is going to overcome this, and we are not going to face a wave of discrimination because the term limits will hit, and all the people who were involved in trying to set this up will be out of the government. Adios, amigo. See that? I used a little Mexican to get you to see my point. And here's the thing: is that they say that we that Trump supporters can't celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Well, that's fine with me because I don't celebrate Cinco de Mayo. I am an American. I don't celebrate foreign holidays. I didn't celebrate Mikasa Day in Japan. No, I went and saw the battleship, but I didn't celebrate the holiday. You know, uh, I happen to have English heritage, so I do celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but at times. But it's not every St. Patrick's Day. Sometimes it passes and I forget. But I try to wear green or something, just like I'm wearing now. uh, I just want to thank you for watching my live stream and enjoying the conversation. I really like what Trump is doing. You know, he's really got them on the move, and they know he's going to implement. If he's fulfilling a campaign promise from 12 years ago, he's gonna fulfill his campaign promises from 2 years ago. He's just, you know, rounding things up and making it so he's fulfilled this, so he's gonna fulfill that. And it's all gonna happen. You just gotta trust a little bit and don't trust the government, but trust Trump. See how the government and Trump are two different things. That's what I learned I worked for the government for a brief while as a recreational aide. And even then, I could see that the government was in lock, stock, and barrel against Trump. They were in lockstep, and it was monolithic, you know. But the irony is, we put him right back in office. They got rid of him and cheated him of 2020, and we put him right back in office. And it's because Trump was cheated of 2020 that I really do believe we need to have Trump run a third time. We need to, he really just deserves his next term. Like, we don't need an election. He's already won. If they can steal an election, then we, the people, can grant the office to whoever we want, and we want Trump as our presidency once more because he has done a stellar job, and I know he's gonna continue to do a stellar job. He is just knocking things out of the park and getting it done. And you know, I got into a little bit about Trump on Twitch the other day, and I wanted to share a video with you real briefly about Trump. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. It's my president to the advertisement. This I'll be back. I'm gonna get more coffee. And smoke a cigarette. That was President Trump's speech to the class of 2017. And I found out that there's actually a 32-minute speech that you can listen to. I didn't know that. I thought that was the whole speech, was that little video. And so I just, you know, have been enjoying that over the last years. It got me through COVID. It got me through Biden. I would listen to it almost daily because it had Trump speaking. And it just highlights how he's a very positive, uplifting person and doesn't want you to give up. Never give up. Never ever give up. That's what Trump says. That's a positive. When someone says something like that, that's positive, because you might be stuck in a situation in life and then you hear that and you think, well, I'm going to keep on keeping on, just like Paul wrote in the Bible. Keep on keeping on. And, it's kind of like that's why I think this war, the so-called war on white Christian men and the so-called white genocide will fizzle out because the term limits will go into effect and the people that were orchestrating it won't have power anymore. They'll be replaced by someone with a new vision, work experience, life experience. They've been at they had to pump gas too, and so they'll take care of us a lot. They'll lead the country a lot better than this current fiasco that we have of government, and it's come to a head. And that's why we have Trump, see, and he's orchestrating a. He has a vision. He always has a vision, and he always implements it. He has a vision with Iran, and I believe he's implementing it. And I believe he knows what he's doing. He has a vision for the Constitution, and I believe he knows what he's doing, and he's busy implementing it. Oh, and by the way, he has a vision for term limits, and although I don't see it right now, he's probably already getting it implemented, and it's going to happen, just like Iran, just like the Constitution, and so we're going to be okay. It's all going to be okay, even though they're going to still try to pass their legislation with the SAVE Act and blame Trump when uh, white people can't vote anymore, you know. And so I find it to be ironic that Trump is very efficient. They investigated President Trump, for 8 years, and I was surprised. I mean, I knew he was a billionaire. So I pictured him having affairs and, scandals and things like that. More scandals. At least one. Come on, Trump. No, this man, he never smoked. He never drank. And so that's one of the reasons why he has so much money is because he didn't fulfill these habits like you and I do. And so he just has more money, you know? And so, and he's able to run for president because of that, you know? It helped. It adds up. Like if you buy a drink, like you can spend $7 on a shot. And so that's $7 that Trump didn't have to spend. That's a pack of cigarettes goes for 12.75 right now at 7-Eleven. So that's 12.75 still in Trump's pocket right now. And so he some of those politicians, they smoke, they drink. Pelosi is known for being an alcoholic. you know and so they don't the best they could do was to run for Congress. And quite frankly, I wonder which one's cheated because you know they've been in so long. I don't and anyone who challenges them gets shut down. Like, you never hear from them again. Yeah, I got one message from a guy that was claiming to run against Pelosi, and I never heard from him again. Like, did she kill him? I don't know. Did she unalive him? uh you know it's a really fascinating, interesting debacle we've got in our country. But I think Trump is sorting it out one problem at a time. and I think that's why he's starting with Iran, so that you know, so that we can. There will be something on the global stage that was impacted by Trump, and there will be no doubt that he did it. You know, and that's with Iran. They won't have a nuke. So even if the other stuff doesn't get it, right now they could impeach Trump, but whoever took over would have to deal with Iran. See? So you can see that no one's going to want to take over and deal with Iran. So they're not going to impeach Trump, even though they say they want to. Yeah, they want to, but they're not going to do it because he has to finish dealing with Iran. All right. I just wanted to thank you for watching my live stream. I'm gonna play on my phone and go do whatever I do because I think I'm done with this live stream. And I wanted to thank you for watching. Have a good day and please uh, vote for Trump 2028. God bless America. God bless Trump and God bless Israel too. Thank you for watching.